All right. Finally got that thing show. Let's go ahead and start this show, huh, Dave? All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of The Climb, episode 25. Today, we're going to be talking about how to prevent burnout, as well as how to re-energize your agency. Before we get into that, though, why don't you go ahead and wherever you are, comment, like, subscribe, do something with this show. It would mean a lot. All feedback is welcome. Speaking of which, if you want to go ahead and just send me an email to jon@digitalmastermind.com. I will not only make sure that I answer your email, I'll entertain any questions you may have, and I'd love to talk to you about joining if you're an agency owner. Other than that, please check out the website as well. We have some more blog content that's going up, as well as more reasons for agencies to be a part of our organization based on sharing information as well as collaborating to take their organizations to the next level. But today is something near and dear. It's burnout and energy, which is something that's a topic that I talk about a lot amongst the group, as well as with friends, and of course my partner in climb, Dave. Dave, why don't you come on out here and say hi to everybody?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well, buddy. Looking good with the tan.
Thank you. So I love this topic, burnout. I mean, it's something we talk about all the time. How do you maintain that passion, that fire? Everyone hits a lull, and breaking out of that is key, because if you don't break out of that, you might just give it up.
Yeah, and you hear about these people that old adage or whatever, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. There's doctors I've heard that work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then
everyone gets burnout.
Everybody. Yeah. Especially if it's something that you love, because those passions burn so hot. It's something that you have to nurture and take care of. Like, all right, am I coming close to that edge?
Well, I do what I love, and I'm super passionate about what we do on a daily basis, but there's tasks and stuff that aren't always, that thing that you just, absolutely love. And those are the things that typically lead you to a little bit of burnout. I mean, there's accounting, there's HR issues. I mean, it's you can do what you love and still get burnt out easily.
Yeah, or even working with a specific person that you rub each other the wrong way, and that could be within that sphere of the things that you love. But sure. Today, what I'd like to go over is, all right, let's go over some of the how-tos and tips and things, and go down the list. And I think we should hear from one another on the way that we approach these things. And somebody listening, I'm sure, will be able to find that valuable. So one that I know is really popular that a lot of people that talk about all the time, and then I've experimented with on and off, and I try to go for it, is meditation, right? So with meditation, there's periods of my life where I'm just like, all right, I hate it. It doesn't work. It does nothing for me. There's others where I'm like, oh, wow, I'm getting a benefit. I haven't been able to journal or figure out if there's something external with that. Right now, I'd say I'm in a transitional period, so I'm still meditating to some extent, and it's something that I try to do either in the morning or late at night. In the middle of the day, it just doesn't work for me. But how about you? Tell me if you go ahead.
First, I mean, let me ask you, do you do this just when you burn out? Is this do it every day for maintenance? Is this, why are you doing this?
So why do I meditate? Typically, I'll do it if I can't go to sleep. It's a way that it'll lull me to sleep. So I'll do that, which, granted, meditation practitioners consult against that, right? It's this thing you're supposed to do, whenever in the middle of the day, a routine and schedule. But yeah, I'd say as far as when I'm burned out, no, I don't do anything other than just maintain. Like I have nothing when I get to the state of burnout than just kind of stay awake and survive.
No, I mean, when you say you meditate, do you do it regularly, no matter if you're burned out or not?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Okay. But I say I go through phases. Sometimes I do it. Sometimes I don't. Right now I'm in a phase where I'm meditating, and there's other practice. And also, I guess the second note to that is mindfulness, right? That's another thing that's super important. That's something that I practice. I try to practice all the time because it is a practice. And for instance, in the morning, right, saying gratitude is like, what are the things that you're grateful for? And the reason that helps me is because if you're grateful for something, it's a super powerful mindset and emotion, because whatever comes your way, if you're just grateful to be alive, if you're grateful for whatever you do, it's going to overpower whatever those other negative things are.
I mean, my worst day is like 80% of this planet's best day, right? That's what I always think is, I mean, it could be so much worse. So my worst day, no matter what's going on, is still pretty damn good. So
Yeah, that's a great mindset. Yeah, it is. But I think that's gratitude right there. You're expressing gratitude.
sure. No, I feel very extremely lucky. I don't do the meditation thing, though there are some things that I can almost relate to it. But when I get burnt out, like the only thing that kind of gets me out, because when I'm burnt out, what I feel inside when I'm burnt out is I want to run away from my day to day because I'm just like, I'm so tired of this. And what breaks me out of it is actually diving into it a little deeper. And usually that's like when I have to go recruit new employees and I have to go sell oil, and it reminds me of like why I started this. Like that has, broken me out of more burnouts than anything, because I'll have to go out there and recruit and convince, a candidate to join our team. And in doing that, I've got to talk about, why we're great, what our benefits, what we do, what's our focus, how we work. And it's like, yeah, hey, I remember this. I helped build this. This is great. So I don't know how to just proactively do that without having to do a hiring or anything, but I have noticed like easily 3 times having to hire a candidate, a new employee has broken me out of a burnout.
Yeah, that's interesting, and I think that's the complicated thing about burnout, right? It's not formulaic where you can say I'm going to do these things. That sounds like that's something organic and natural, where you come up with you're burned out because obviously we're overworked and we need to have somebody that's internal to help out with that. And then a part of that, you get to express, some of the things, which goes into one of the other points I have here, which is, and a lot of people, this is something very popular, whether it's vision, mission, your purpose, your why. That sounds like you're getting in tune with that, which is an integral part of, preventing burnout or re-energizing yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I think just, like we discussed earlier in the year, like with one of our guests about putting together process. I mean, when I put that together this year, that just reminded me of what are we doing? And so I think you just nailed it, that, reminding yourself of the mission is probably like the easiest thing to do, to say, hey, what are we doing here? And I think we probably all need to, do that more often.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't have one of those. I think there's multiple situations that come up where I could say, well, that's why I do this, right? Especially where there is, a big success. But I think one of the things I put a staple to is I love to win at things. So it's defining what winning looks like, and then just realizing, you can push a ton of fear aside, you can push a ton of exhaustion aside and keep going if you know that you're close to that finish line and you're going to win. I think a lot of people forget that feeling that you had when you were a kid, and everybody's won at something, right? It's not like that, shitty movie where like, oh, I've never won anything. Okay, whatever. Well, somebody's either won a game of checkers or whatever that is. And there was a feeling. Yes, right. Exactly. Yeah. We could just, but there's that feeling that somebody has of that winning. It's like, okay, well, how do you get more of that in life? And it doesn't mean you need to, hurt anybody or anything. It's just, how can you pull a team together or yourself, see what that finish line is, accomplish something, and move forward. I think that is my purpose, along with helping people.
Yeah. I mean, I like the saying of, I like to win. I mean, I was just, as you said that, thinking for myself, like, what does that mean to win? Because I've never been about the fame. Like, when we have to talk about the successes of our company, I'm proud, but I don't want to get into bragging, because I don't like shoving it in people's face. But I think I guess it does provide recognition for the team. So I guess when I always look at it, like, I just want to grow opportunities for the family. Like, that's kind of how I look at it, is the bigger, better wins we get, the more opportunities we get to grow organically within our way, the oil of a way. So,
and it's achieving a goal. You set a goal, you accomplish it. That's a win, right?
Yep.
Getting a new client, a new account, that's a win. Even a lead that comes in based on your marketing campaign, that's a win. Shipping off a new project that we launched, those are wins. And I think it's understanding those wins and celebrating those wins.
But don't you feel that wins degrade or they're just not? I mean, you've heard of like the sales high, right? I mean, that's a pretty common topic, right?
Yep.
When I sold my first big client, that was like, such a high, such a rush. Like I just remember celebrating in my car on the drive back to the office, and I'm like, just super excited.
Banging the ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think at the time my ceiling was hanging down. It was one of those drooping ceilings. I think I might have just held it back up. Yeah. But it's harder and harder to get that because you have to win bigger to feel that. So maybe that's your drive. You're addicted to the win.
It could be, yeah, and even the little ones. Like we won a small account today. It's a national, international brand. It's a small project for them, but yeah, that's a huge win.
I love that. Yeah.
Talk to the account manager, and I think it's being grateful. It's showing the gratitude for that, right? It's not huge, but we still won something. The day that you stop. Maybe it's a humility thing. The day that you stop appreciating wins and the day that you stop having that uneasy feeling before you send out work, whether it's going to be good or not, I think is the day that you kind of shrivel up and die. Or maybe that's just a sign of burnout, right? Mm-hmm. And yeah. And then, to like what you said, burnout, when I'm burned out, it's I want to run. I am irritable. I have in through this like COVID crisis and all these other things, there's been a couple times here where I was like, all right, I'm burned the hell out and I need to regroup.
Completely agree. And I feel like, but I feel like it's been life burnout. Like I definitely think there's a difference between work burnout. For me, this whole COVID summer has been life burnout because.
But as an owner, it's blended together though, isn't it? Like it's so inseparable. Like we haven't really been able to leave. Like my wife and I were supposed to go to Spain. You know what I'm saying? Like that's not happening. I mean,
right.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to take a staycation and just pretend I was on vacation because no hotels are open. I mean, or if they are, we found this one resort that we were going to just take a little quick vacation to get away. And then like literally 5 seconds away from booking. And then I read their little disclaimer and it's like all the restaurants are closed. All the bars are closed. Only one pool open. I'm like, what? This is not even a resort then. It's just a hotel. What are we going to just sit in the room? So those are the issues that I think a lot of people are dealing with in the whole being stuck in your house for we're going on 5 months now?
Yeah.
Just tired of it.
And then being stuck in your house, like that brings up the next point of how to prevent burnout is a routine, right?
Yep.
If you have a positive routine, that is beneficial, like waking up at the same time every day, going to bed relatively at the same time. That is super beneficial. When I'm outside of my routine, especially when I'm like on the road entertaining clients, that's when things really start to lapse because you don't get your emails in time. You don't, whether it's writing or whatever those other duties that you're supposed to do in your week, falls apart. And then next thing you know, I'm hating the way that things are going.
Talking about like, tips and tricks to get like knock yourself out of burnout. To me, getting into nature is always something too. I mean, when I find myself stuck indoors too long, come Friday, I'm like ready to go nuts.
What do you like? Go for walks? Like what does that mean to you getting in?
Or just spend the evening outside in the backyard and just get out of the house, get fresh air. Go to the beach. We're lucky enough to have the beach right here when it's not closed due to COVID. But
right, yeah,
nature resets me a lot.
Yeah, I agree. I think a lot of people would agree with that too. Yeah, for sure. Especially being close to the water. I think that's something that's really strong. And I guess, and then with that, we bring up the next point is essentially like knowing yourself, right? Knowing your limitations, knowing you can only go so far, listening to your body. I mean, for instance, like when things really start to stress me out, like I can feel my chest getting tighter. I can feel it in my neck. I can feel hot. And I'm like, okay, like my body's telling me like I need to go take a break or chill out.
So sounds like we need to get a key man policy on you. You might just might have that heart attack. And
yeah,
I definitely understand. And I suffer from high blood pressure, and I feel it when I'm super stressed. I feel it in my veins. I mean, I completely agree with that. So that's why like going back to talking about winning, like I love winning, but not the expense of stress. I mean, there are definitely projects that, we've gotten that have turned into more stress than worth it, I guess. So,
and I think it's negative stress, right? Because there's positive stress. There's a lot of people that will fight. We'll even fight ourselves tooth and nail when we're growing, right? Growing is a painful process. So I think it's just realizing like, hey, this is going to be a little bit outside of our comfort zone, or it could be a lot, but this is something that we all agree that we want, or just even, as a person, this is something that I want. So I think the juice is worth the squeeze. I'm going to go for it.
Yeah. And that's a hard lesson to learn. I mean, we talk about it with individual teams here, that to grow is painful, or maybe it's like a little bit of loss of revenue for the team because you have an extra expense. But then after you get through it and you go through the process, you come out better on the other end. But people don't really buy that until they've gone through it a couple times. And once you've kind of gone through the practice and you're understand that is the process, you don't buy into it. And then once you do, you're good. And you can, you go through that process, and then growth feels like growth.
It's also trust, right? It's trust and context, right? So we've been through this before, but yeah, some people get super paranoid and scared when we're like, no, this is a growing opportunity. To them, it looks like a complete threat where you're just going to drop a ball on them.
And a lot of people just hear, more work.
Yeah, that's true too. Right. Too much of that though, you might have the wrong person on your team, right?
Yeah.
All right, so I think knowing yourself is a great one. And also what are the things that give you pleasure and what are the things that don't give you pleasure? You mentioned the accounting tasks. Like, all right, those are specific things that I think it's knowing your list. Like, what are the things you do not want to be doing? And if you can delegate those, especially as an agency owner, the better, or any type of business owner. And then what are the things that you want to be working on? There's that.
Well, sorry, accounting tasks. The one thing that's funny about that is when things are going well, I love doing accounting tasks. When things aren't, man, I obsess over numbers. Like I love numbers, and when I can put a spreadsheet together that balances, like the numbers match up, I'm like, whoa, that's really cool. How did I keep this number balanced the whole time? So when things are great, I love doing those tasks, and that's exactly what burnout is. Like when things don't seem ideal and you have to do something that's just kind of shoving in your face how things aren't going well, that like doubles down on, man, this sucks.
Yeah. And especially like when you either A, an employee isn't pulling their weight, or B, when you lose an employee and then you have to go into some position that you absolutely hate, that is completely grueling.
Yeah.
Especially burnout too, when we take on accounts and I have to jump in on certain things. That will just grind me because you can't let off of your other duties and functions. So you're now doing double duty. That is something I'm reflecting back to a couple months ago. That is something that was grinding on me.
Yeah, HR issues for me are what kill me because it's just not productive. Or anything related to, somebody's got a problem with somebody else, or like all that, like managing that stuff is like, come on, we're not if we're not talking about clients, but team and culture, you got to put time into it. But if I could establishing team culture is difficult, but once you have it, it can help prevent burnout as well, I think.
Sure. But I think it's also, they're humans. Humans are a bunch of variables, personal problems, and those things are going to erupt. And then it's just looking at them and just having the communication necessary to realize, okay, you're having some other type of issue that is now becoming a business issue, right? And then, all right, how do we solve this? And I don't know if that ever goes away.
Yes. Another like a little tip that I just thought of for breaking out of a burnout. Like a lot of people will look at a project or a new thing and look at the total picture and it looks daunting and it looks, like this huge undertaking. And then if you can break it down into smaller tasks and celebrate those small victories, it's a much easier way to wrap your, stress around getting the project done. Like I always tell clients, like focus on phase one. Like I hate when we're in an early conversation with a client and we're talking about the things we're going to do in 3 years. But there's so many things to do to get there that talking about that is a waste of everyone's time right now because we're going to be diverted. A COVID might happen. I mean, we've talked about this before, but what a waste of time and energy talking about some 2-year plan when you got to get and focus on the 6-week plan. And I think for me personally, when I focus like that, I get less burnout because there's a lot more individual victories.
Yeah, and to that point, there's a couple of things there. One is sometimes clients like to dream. It's like, okay, cool, we're dreaming. There's other times where like this is just mental masturbation. It's like, okay, I think we need to just walk away from this, and that's consulting time that you can pay for. It's outside of the project. But I think one of the points I have for preventing burnout there is it's completing things. If you can't complete things and you have all of these open loops, all of these open tasks, life sucks. It's your work's going to suck. Everything's going to suck because you have no wins, right? Or you have nothing to move forward on. And all that, if you're going to look at your brain as like, your hard drive or your RAM, it's full. It's full of all these open things, all these processes that won't complete, and you're going to melt down. That's something that's natural. So that's something that you can look at. What are the smallest things that I can do just to get things off my plate? And then just keep going through that list until you get to the bigger thing.
Sure. When people get stressed out, I tell them another human habit is always to try to tackle the most complicated, hardest thing first, because you need to deal with the elephant in the room, right? And not all the other small issues. Well, I have found that you can change your everything if you flip that and start tackling the easiest things, knock those out so that you only have the elephant in the room left to deal with and everything is completed. Because when you're looking at a task list and it's 40 items long, that sucks. So when things get tough, I'm like, let's flip it. What can we just knock out right now and build momentum? So
yep, knock out the daunting things. I agree. And I think to that is also understanding, and maybe this is under a sub point of knowing yourself, is energy, right? Knowing when you have the energy to work on certain things and then when you don't. Like there are certain tasks in the morning that I'll work on that I rarely work on. Like I rarely write anything at night. And if it's like data entry type things or stupid monotony things, I do those in the afternoon, as well as meetings. All my morning time I try to have is like focus time. Like, okay, this is planning. These are the things I need to knock out. Afternoon, that's when I work on anything I don't need energy. I'm going to get energy from a conversation from somebody else. I don't need to power myself through it. In the afternoon, I will procrastinate and find a way to get out of it.
So when a client asks you to schedule a meeting in one of your, typical time zones that you don't want to, do you do it anyways, or do you push them to schedule it in another time?
I think it depends on the client. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if it's a client that is definitely if you're paying for in the top level of our company, then and you get a piece of me, then yeah, we'll go ahead and do it at your time. If it's another one, then no, it's going to be in the afternoon. Yeah, got to pay to play, baby.
Sure, but also, don't you think like those larger clients that are more like partners, right? You're really I've had conversations with my huge clients that I just said, hey, I hate having meetings on Monday. Can we not do it? And just with a conversation, we just found that mutual ideal time because you do have that close relationship because you have been working and you're doing so much work for them. So, I mean, if there is, I would just, say as a tip, just talk to your clients. Say, hey, I'm not, good at this. I agree with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And then to my personal experience, it's not, we don't have anything scheduled in the morning. It's just if they need something, then all right, they're going to need something. I think it's that mutual understanding, or we push it, right? Like, hey, I can't do now, I can do later. But yeah, I agree. Right. Having the open dialogue with your client, which is another point on here, right? Being communicating the boundaries of the people that you work with internally and externally. So that would be one of the boundaries. One of the things I'm moving toward now is I'm not going to do any meetings on Mondays, right? That's where I'm going to do all my planning and creative.
Highly recommend that.
Yeah. So it's all right. Get all that stuff out of the way for the week. Those are the boundaries. Internally, everybody's going to know those as well as externally.
So you know why I came up with that? When I finally decided and said, all right, no more meetings on Monday. It came quickly after I started ignoring my email on the weekend. Back in the day when we first started, somebody would email me. I'm responding at all hours, all time, weekends, off hours, because I was nervous that I could lose my business at any minute, right? So I'm always there. And it took a while to break that habit, to let people know, like, hey, I'm not going to respond to you at 9 p.m. or, on the weekend. So when I started ignoring the email on the weekend, I would get in on Monday, and then people are, I'm having to hop on a meeting before I've gone through my email. And that always annoyed the shit out of me. So I was like, all right, I don't want any meetings. I'm sitting there trying to run time reports and review what happened last week. I'm trying to clear all these emails of stuff. And I was like, no more meetings Monday. I need to catch up, get ready for this week, and prep everything I need to do for the week. And, Monday's my day to get that going. So that's how that.
Monday, your favorite day of the week?
Favorite? No, it's the day that does set the tone for the week, though.
Yeah, and I think so. Yeah, I respond to. I do set up on Sundays. I try to get ahead of the week. I look at like what is the week ahead on a Sunday,
and I see those emails come through, and I'm like, John, what are you doing?
I got it, dude. It's
Go
just
golf.
What's that? I golf.
Go golf.
Even if I golf on a Sunday, it's just I have to be ahead. It's just wherever everybody else is going to do, like I have to do that much more. It's just that's a personality thing, but. That being said, Monday is going to, I don't want it as a catch-up day. I want it as essentially this is all the work that I'm going to accomplish this day and get those things off and those shipped. So yeah, and meetings, emails, I get so many damn emails right now. Like that's a whole nother problem. I don't have a solution for that in the burnout side of things. Just, do less work.
Have you heard of, is it hey.com? That's a
the one with the guy from Basecamp or whatever, the Hanamir Hansen or whatever. You think he's the creator of that?
I don't know. It's going around our team right now, and I guess it's some permission-based email platform. Like you have to opt into somebody being able to email you before an email gets to you.
Interesting. Yeah,
I like the concept, but
that doesn't help me. Like all these people have permission to email me. I wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, they're all important things.
It would cut down on the spam, but Google already does a good job of cutting.
They do a great job of that, man. Yeah, and then with anybody that does cold email for their business, if they don't keep a folder of the best cold emails that they get, they're cheating themselves. I look at those, I'm like, oh, I'm stealing that, or I'm going to use that, and we'll sell some of those things even to our clients for marketing automation campaigns. So that part doesn't bother me. Just the amount of work.
Yeah, that reminds me of an email that solicitation that I clicked on recently was, you've been approved for something, or just you've been approved. And I'm like, ooh, finally my PPP loan is getting it. So I open it up and I'm like, oh, damn, they got me. I was like, genius subject title, because every business owner right now is waiting for that approval letter. So yeah, they definitely got me.
Yeah, I took a call the other day from a guy that it was like, hey, this is an important personal matter. And I was like, oh. So I was like, all right, I took the call, not knowing what it was. And I went through our receptionist, and it was personal matter because it was a financial planner. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Not cool, man. Not cool. No. Yeah. Well, they had this whole story where they was like, who's going to start a relationship with a lie? So it was just like, yeah, it's not going to work.
So, these salespeople are super trained to get through the receptionist. And when the ones that sneak through to me, that get past our administrative assistant, I just kind of laugh because I'm like, damn, that was pretty slick.
Yeah. Yeah. And no fault to her. Like I would have potentially, that could have potentially tricked me too. Hey, this is a personal matter. You have the confidence in the tone. But the way I look at it is, if you have to do those types of tactics, unimaginative, kind of like creepy, kind of sleazy, then you're selling something that's entirely too competitive, and you need to go find another job if that's what you're willing to do, because that's not going to the distance. That's doing something that's pretty shitty. What if somebody's wife or kid or husband is in the hospital and they think this is that call that so and so is actually going to make it, or that they've passed? Like that's not cool.
Yeah. I mean, 100% agree on that example, but I would imagine there's sales directors all across this, the spectrum, demanding their salespeople use those tactics to get to the decision maker.
Yeah,
So.
maybe. Yeah. And I think those are the unethical practices. Yeah. Those are things that, I won't stoop to.
Who said if you're not cheating, you're not trying hard enough? Some football coach, maybe.
John Madden?
Maybe.
I think his was, it's not cheating if you don't get caught, actually.
I think that's Bill Belichick.
Yeah. Well, he lived that for sure. All right. Another thing is, vacations unplug. I know you touched on this, but I think that you unplug on the weekends. I typically unplug all day Saturday. That's golf day, no work and whatnot. But the vacations, for instance, I have one, can't leave the country. So we're going to the Northeast to watch the leaves change in the fall. So 2 weeks, I'm gonna attempt to go 2 weeks completely unplugged to see how that works. I haven't done that for some time. I went to Iceland, unplugged, went to Hawaii, couldn't unplug. I was hoping that when I got married in 2012, they were able to track me down. But yeah, I think it's inherently important to completely get away, completely unplug, and set time away for yourself.
100% important. It's easier said than done. I mean, the last time I was able to do that was when I went to Italy. And that was like, God, it feels like 3 years ago. And I'm so desperately needing that again. But yeah.
How long are you gone?
10 days.
10 days. Yeah.
10, 11 days, somewhere around there. So it was enough.
Yep.
It feels good, and it feels even. But for a lot of people out there, you take a long vacation and you don't have the right team in place, and you come back to a bunch of firestorms. You'll start, having nightmares about taking vacation, and a lot of agency owners out there will get into that scared mindset that they can't leave the ship unattended or it's going to sink. And I used to be like that, and finally, it's just like anything else. I just had to train myself that, hey, it's going to be okay. It's going to be all right. And so when I came back and everything was running smooth, I was like, this is amazing.
But leaving also, so when I left for Hawaii, there was somebody that interrupted that for something that wasn't that business. I fired that person shortly thereafter because I realized this is a revealing time. I told everybody, these are the boundaries, these are the circumstances, this is the framework that I want us to play in while I'm gone. And that they thought something was more of an emergency than it absolutely was. And that just showed me like, all right, this person has to go. And I think that's something revealing. When you come back, what are all those issues? And then how do you begin tackling those? Which, is the reenergizing and helping you prevent, some of that burnout.
Sure.
There's other super important one, be nice to yourself. Like a lot of people are entirely too hard on themselves, where they forget something and they're going to, make it the end of the world, or like the daunting tasks that are ahead of them. Some people are their own worst enemies, and they don't look at the way that they talk to themselves. Dialogue, especially when it comes to business owners, because business owners can be really lonely because it's lonely on top, right? There's certain things that you may not want to say to your employees. So, and then, if they want to get like, speak with their spouses or psychological help, those are some things. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to what is the conversation you're having with yourself about your life and the way that you go about your work. You have to be nice to yourself. If you're not your own best friend, it's going to be really hard to make sure that you get through the tough times.
So if you allow me to go on a little bit of a story here, I was watching Chopped last night, which is one of my favorite shows. And in the intro, this
cooking show.
Yeah.
Okay.
And on the Food Network, it's called Chopped. This woman, in the intro is like, yeah, I immigrated to America. My dad thought it was a bad idea. And if I win this, it's going to prove to my father that I'm not a disappointment. And she was the first one chopped. And I was like, God damn, that must hurt so.
Oh, dude, that's terrible, man.
I was like, you need to win this to validate your life decisions. And you obviously did not make the right decision.
Oh, that is horrible, man. She threw that out there.
She puts that, I don't know, maybe that's family pressure, but that pressure that she's feeling, she put it on herself, or she's carrying.
Right, yeah.
And I would tell her that, hell, the fact that you made it onto Chopped, it was already the victory.
Yeah. And you got to prove this to your dad? No, that's right. I agree. But I think in that circumstance, you could definitely be entirely too hard on yourself, set the wrong expectations, and hopefully now she's being nice to herself, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
But I also think as an agency owner, there's a lot more pressures than if you lose your job, then you worry about, oh, what is my family going to do? As an agency owner, when you lose your business, it's not just you, but it's all your employees too. There's a lot more on your shoulders. So I think it's easier to be a lot more critical and harsher and harder on yourself because there's a lot more riding on it.
For sure. I also think there's an inherent built-in insecurity if you're not careful to care entirely too much what people think, and it self-perpetuates based on being in the creative space to create work for others, right? So it's not that you get to be some artist that does an art show or put your art in a gallery, somebody walks by your picture, it's fine. You or your team create something, then that then gets approved by a client, right? Or not. They're like, oh, this sucks, this is shit, or this is great, right? Okay, cool. And then that work has to go out and perform. So there's these layers, which creates an insecurity because the willpower and stress necessary to create those things at a level that performs is not normal for other businesses, right? So I think that's something important, even if it's code that you're going to ship out or whatever, right? You have those issues. So I think that creates this insular way about agencies going about their business, and where they begin to hide things, they keep things in, and they don't express their issues that they're having with other business owners because they're not going to understand, right? You have people that are in like EO or Vistage or something, but there's another like language and culture that happens between these companies, knowing some of the issues that I disclosed, right? And I think that creates that self-contained insecurity where you're unwilling to share, and that unwilling to share is going to create disconnect in your world, and it's just going to continually proliferate everywhere in the worst ways possible. So, and I'm speaking a lot of that from personal experience, like that. Those are the things that I was going to until I really noticed it. I'm like, oh man, this is literally a shit stew that I just keep brewing. I have to do something about it.
Well, didn't you just describe digital masterminds right there? I mean,
the reason for it, yes.
Yeah. I mean, talk about one of the best. I mean, we should have mentioned this number one, but the number one best cure for my burnout is digital masterminds.
Yeah.
I mean, when we get on a call,
but beat me to it, Dave. Go for it.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Please continue.
But no, when I'm missing our conference. COVID canceling the conference this year is going to kill me, right? I haven't missed one in 8 years or so, and this is going to be the first time I don't get out to DMG. Yeah. So that's going to suck. But I mean, at least we've started the monthly call or the weekly calls, and we've done some more things to keep the community engaged. But once I found that community and I was able to interact with peers, I mean, that was such a I would highly recommend finding a peer group. No matter what your industry is, find a peer group. It'll be worth it, and make sure it's a peer group that's not too big, because I'm a member of some that are so gigantic that there's a lot of low quality and annoying, or maybe not in the same. They're not really a peer.
There's nothing wrong with a dog walker, but when you own a technology company, you don't share the same problems as a dog walker.
Correct. Right. And you don't want a bunch of people whose payroll costs are not even a tenth of yours. You got to find peers. They have to be in your realm to get the maximum value. But I mean, just to be able to have those relationships are so key. I mean,
and I think it's the connecting, right? Where somebody else has had not a similar problem, but that exact same problem, right? That is an important thing. They've had the same experiences as you. And I think it's multi-layered. I think you can have your wider network peer group, but then you need to have something that is specifically focused on your industry, because there's things to be learned from somebody that runs a credit card processing company for sure, or maybe even that dog walker. But at the same time, there's way more to be gained by working with others that are, like I said, going through those same problems that you have. And the sizes, can vary, but at the same time, it needs to be in the same industry.
And just going back to your point that you're saying, is the person that thinks that they can't share, and that somebody might steal my ideas, or they might do this, that's a bad mindset, because there's so much business out there. Talking openly about clients and process and things like that. Like if you're worried about if you're worried about somebody
Scarcity
stealing,
thinking, right? So Steve Jobs would literally have conversations with Bill Gates about certain things. If you want to go up to like that crazy level and that extreme, doesn't mean he was letting him into his source code by any stretch, but there were things that were gained from just the relationship that those two had.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But so I guess what I'm trying to say is at the agency level, like we are no Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. Like we're not on that level. So you're not, there's 10,000 agencies competing. And if you let 10 of them know your process, go
over like 30,000 or something that fall into that category. And even if you are at the Steve Jobs or the whatever, level, if you have the humility and mindset, I think you can even do greater things. I think there's something about accepting those around you and hearing their stories. And there's tons of stories, even looking into him now that I'm thinking about it, where he interacted with others, helped them out, but he also gained something in return.
Sure.
But yeah, I can't say enough about Peers Group. Thanks for beating me to that one. So I guess some of the others too are the basics that we didn't cover. They could fall into routines. Some other subcategories are like exercise, diet, sleep. If you don't have those basic things, whether it's in your routine or in your life, like honed in, I think that's something to focus on immediately. Exercise is something, if I haven't exercised, I go to the gym anywhere from 3 to 4 times a week. I golf, of course. I know things are going to start unraveling. Just psychologically, I'm going to not feel as good, as well as physically, where it feels like, things need to be oiled. Diet, I eat a pretty strict diet. I don't do any sugar. I don't eat any dairy. It's fun at, house parties, let me tell you, but, and dinner parties. But in any event, that keeps me on a level playing field. I, for the most part, don't get a sugar crash. I rarely, if ever, get sick. So I think those things are important. I always have a lot of energy. I don't even drink caffeine either. So, I mean, that's something else that's a lot hard for people to swallow. And sleep. I get anywhere from 6 to 8 hours of sleep per night. If I don't have anything within that range, I'm miserable. I used to do this thing where I would do one all-nighter a week because, I don't know, I thought it was a good idea to just show, some type of Spartan approach to life where you could still crush it. That is childish, ridiculous. I think you need as much sleep as your body can take.
I think diet, out of all the things you just mentioned, diet is by far the number one. When this quarantine started, I mentioned a couple times that I started the keto diet, and energy levels nice and balanced out. There's no peaks, there's no valleys, there's no starving, there's no it's just it's the first time I've ever really implemented a diet and stuck with it, because I mean, how many times did I start a diet in 2 weeks? I'm shoving pizza in my mouth. So God, I feel great. Just
how much weight have you lost?
Great. What's that?
How much weight have you lost?
20 pounds.
That's huge.
Yeah, I wanted. So it was key. All right. So talk about marketing here. We just saw an advertisement for, I think it was either Jenny Craig or Weight Watchers, and their whole commercial is about dealing with the quarantine 15. Because probably everyone put on 15 pounds sitting in the house for the last 3 months. I wanted to make sure at the beginning of that I was like, wait, this is my focused time with the least amount of distraction to change something major. We're in quarantine. We have no excuse not to execute some kind of plan. And I wanted to make sure I came out of this better than I went into it. So that was my mindset on starting a new diet and coming out of quarantine better. And be able to come out of quarantine 20 pounds lighter was great. So
that's awesome. Yeah, no, I think diet's important. I think also to that, also libations and the way that people, I guess party, if you will. I used to party a lot harder in my 20s, and I've slowed down a lot. So I think those are some things to take into account that'll help, you sleep better. I know others that can drink like a fish and still get, a full 8 hours of sleep a night. I'm not that person. If I drink, I'm getting like 4 hours of sleep per night. I get these huge dark circles under my eyes. And it's a horrible way to go about life. So I think also understanding the way that you relax, make sure that you're truly relaxing. Otherwise, it's going to affect one of those 3 categories I just mentioned.
So interesting you mentioned that, because being on keto, you can't have any sugar or carbs. So that cuts out a lot of, no beer, no sugary drinks. So your alcoholic beverages are pretty bland, pretty straightforward. But, for example, I'm drinking seltzers, those alcoholic seltzers that are so popular now. And I mean, my hangovers are almost non-existent. And a lot of people say sugary wine, the sweeter wines will crush a hangover.
Oh yeah, ports. Oof.
Yeah,
so good, but so bad.
So, no wines, no sugar in any of my drinks, and I wake up like it's like I wasn't even drinking last night.
But I think this is going to be the evolution. If you look at non-alcoholic beer sales, I want to say they're up like 30%, right? So just alcohol in general, like all these things, there's this huge trend that is further widening toward health. And I think COVID is even going to exacerbate that because the high risk categories, heart disease, obesity, diabetes, those are other reasons to make sure that you're in the best shape of your life at all times.
I'm getting advertised right now on Facebook for an alcohol-free gin, and I'm like, who's craving gin so much that you need to be able to drink it in the day and not get shit-faced? Like I just don't understand that. It's like
my wife would try that. She's 500 and something days without drinking. She quit booze. She'll drink non-alcoholic beer. Yeah, she just likes it.
But why?
She likes.
I don't get it because I think beer in general kind of tastes like shit compared to like a 7-Up.
Yeah, or Coca-Cola. Absolutely. Right. Yeah, but it's just those are. But she, sommelier, she appreciates those things, right? Sure. So, and she realized it wasn't working in her life, so she decided to take it out.
Yeah.
And I tried some of the non-alcoholic beers. I was never really a big beer drinker anyway. I was like, yeah, it tastes like beer. Yeah. I'm not gonna, suck down a 6-pack of them or anything.
Right.
But but I think at the end of the day, the point there is your health is inherently important, and the link between your psychological, because that's what we mainly do here, right? Thinking type work, and physical is super connected, and you need to appreciate both of those and make sure that those two are in sync.
Yeah, mental health is pretty much all of it, right? I mean, when you get around to it, it all adds up to, is your mind in it?
Yeah. Right. If you're not, I mean, everything is going to be miserable. You hear the stories about like going to back to the meditation where there's like some, I think it was some monk or something or yogi that could meditate and raise and lower their blood pressure and body temperature like 10 degrees and things like that. So if you're completely in it mentally, what you'll be able to accomplish is it could be out of this world, right? Because you're going to be able to tell your body to do whatever it takes. All right. What's that?
I was just reading a Albert Einstein quote that said, everyone's born a genius, but if you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, everyone will be labeled an idiot.
Well, yeah. It's like there's a fit for everybody, right? So you just need to find what that person's fit is, which is interesting, though, is where people are like really good at something, but they don't appreciate it and they don't do it. And they find the thing that is more difficult and more challenging to do that, and then they struggle and then quit. That's a whole nother podcast where we could talk about how shitty our school systems are and how misguided guidance counselors guide children. But
sure.
Anyway, I do want to jump to taking some of these things to re-energize and prevent burnout within your agency, right? And granted, all these personal things are super important and inherent to make a person successful, as well as any company for that matter, for the most part. But in an agency, I think one of the most important things is communication. Everybody says, like all business and all organizations, communication is key. Well, it is. And I think it's the way that people communicate, where there's no gossiping, right? That's something that I've seen is the detriment to many successful companies and clubs and associations and everything, or just even, personal relationships. The other side is being direct in your communication, telling people not only how you feel, but in a way that gets you closer to what you want. Not at the cost of somebody, where there's these great compromises, but making sure that you're understood and the other person, is communicating to you, so you're understood. So there's not this barrier or obstacle between you two. The other side too is culture, right? Going, understanding who you are as a company. If you have a cutthroat, dog eat dog, gossipy type culture, that's going to be toxic. That's not going to be a place that people are going to enjoy working. They're not going to be able to do their best work, and you're literally fighting an uphill battle. The other point I would like to make is that the type of work that you take on at your agency, you can burn out your staff. And I see this and the most popular thing right now is like these specialty agencies, right? Where they specialize in like all trades, where they do like all air conditioning, or they do like only restaurants, or they do only, I don't know, kids' birthday parties, right? You get the point. The problem with that, though, is the burnout that happens because people get sick as shit of doing that type of work. It's boring, it's monotonous because you've created this production line and you don't allow your team to fully express themselves. So if you are an agency that is a specialist, I think that's great. You've made sacrifices, that's wonderful. But I would also be mindful of your team and understand that if they want to leave, it might be on account of the work that they're producing for you. And then to that other point, the type of work that you take on, if you have bad clients that mistreat your staff and your team's not going to trust you. You have to protect your team, and you have to protect the type of work that comes in your house. Not only is it profitable, but is it something that is going to serve the future? And everybody has to take on accounts and things that they don't want. I get that. But be really mindful, listen to your team. There's a feedback loop there, and it can really bring people together when you're aligned on the type of work that you want to accomplish, and the outcomes can be spectacular.
Well, to your point on the like niche down till it hurts. Like we talk about that all the time. And then you just do restaurants. Well, so from a developer perspective, when I was younger in my career, I wanted to work for a product company, right? Write software for a product because I felt like that was like the where the fame was or where the excitement was. And what I realized is, God, working on the same product every month. Yeah, there's new features, but it's over. And like, it just got so boring.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I moved to, starting Oyova and then working on all these different projects, it was really refreshing. Now, a lot of people can't handle it. So there's people on both sides, because there's people that just want to sit and focus on one product. But then there's a lot of people that hate the fast-paced nature of, working on lots of different things. I love that. It makes my day go fast. Like, I love when an 8-hour day feels like 4, because I've worked in organizations where an 8-hour day felt like 12, and I'm miserable. I'm just grumpy on working on that kind of stuff. So I love the fast-paced nature, and it's just so I don't think I could ever niche down till it hurts, because that seems boring. Like, and you're right. Like, if you've got somebody that's an expert SEO person, do they want to do that for the next 15 years? Like, how do you create,
novelty? Yeah, I don't know. And I think it's like, how do you create novelty in your business? Because at its core, you could be specialty based on just doing like dev or e-commerce, which creates.
Well, those are broader.
Absolutely, right? But I agree. If you are an SEO only agency that specializes on taco shops only, right, or just restaurants, that anytime something becomes a production line, it will become monotonous.
Sure, but I think I just came up with the answer, though. If you're going to niche down so hard that it hurts and becomes so monotonous, you need to become a thought leader and start actually producing educational content around that industry and become a content owner. That could give employees, that extra motivation. If they're helping lead the industry and not just producing commodity work all the time, then you really could turn the agency into like a powerhouse niche that's also the thought leader. Like that, I could see being the motivation and drive if you can get to that level.
And then also, and niching down too, though, is not a forever place, right? Unless you're getting bad consulting, right? So for instance, you could say Amazon had a niche where they sold books online. Right. All right, well, they use that as a launch pad to do everything that they've done today. So I think that's also something to consider. Like, okay, we're going to do this for a certain amount of time. We're only going to work on restaurants, but then we're going to expand that to travel as well, where we're going to be working with hotels, and that because that's also hospitality. I think
list all the businesses that COVID just wrecked.
Right.
Travel, restaurants, hotels.
Right. Yeah. But in any event, I think it's also just, looking at, what that looks like, but just being super cognizant that, people are not going to want to say like, I work at a place that only does air conditioning marketing. Like, just being really respectful of that you're not going to get the best talent. So that production line thing makes sense, but in the equilibrium, there's going to be the trade-offs, right? You may make more money, you may get business easier, but the quality of work isn't necessarily going to be the highest.
And it depends on what your team's looking for. I mean, if your team is happy and comfortable, and so I definitely notice a transition. Like once you get over 30, you're looking for more stability rather than sexy and excitement. I mean, it's just natural. You buy a home, or you just start settling down a little bit, and you want stability over excitement. And so it's more, I would say the older you get, the more you're looking for that longer term contract or that longer term project rather than the sexy new stuff that might come around. Because you don't want to, those high flying agencies might be here one day, gone the next.
Could be, but I mean, there's a ton that make it through. There's a ton that that are super successful, and it's not only that, right? It's the work that you deliver, and I think you can find stability in creating amazing things if you're consistent at it, and if you go about your work in the right way, where people are energized in what they do.
Sure, but it's like the question of, would you rather have a 40%, let's say 50% profit margin on a fixed bid project that's a one-time big shot, or would you rather have a monthly recurring retainer? And there's some people that are
recurring retainer.
What's that?
What is the margin on the monthly recurring retainer?
Let's say 25%.
25% of, I mean, that's totally, there's way too many variables in it. Like, I mean, what is the type of company to work with? But I get your point. But
all things being equal, there's some people that are going to say, I'm going to take that big chunk and take the risk, and we'll find something else after that project. And then there's the same amount of people that are going to say, no, I want that stability of the monthly recurring revenue.
I'm going to say both. I want both.
Okay. So you want a deposit and then a monthly recurring.
Yeah. Want to go for both. And I don't know. And I think it just depends on me bringing it into the house, right? And looking at it from the team. If that wouldn't be a necessarily decision I make on my own. I'm like, all right, what do you guys want? You guys got to do the work. Right. So, and that's something I've been trying to do more of, rather than cram things into the house that, piss people off.
Sure.
All right. That brings up, that's most of our topics today. You want to do a Dave by the numbers?
We're going to do the by the numbers first.
Let's do by the numbers. Let's mix it up.
By the numbers. So what I wanted to talk about and by the numbers is, we're talking about the economy here. And in June, we created 4.8 million jobs, which a lot of that has just come back from all the jobs we lost earlier in the spring. But one of the clients we work with is Jobs in Sports. And so when I was thinking about what kind of interesting numbers can I bring to this segment today, and I wanted to look at the growth from June to July of just what we're seeing based on, early indicators, and the amount of employment applications that our client is seeing right now is already it's like 80% over and above June projection. The amount of active employers that we see coming to the site is over 75% of what June is. So if June already created 4.8 million jobs, we're about to see a July explosion of the economy. And in what we're seeing in these numbers here for our client Jobs in Sports, I mean, I don't see any way that July doesn't look like a record month once again. Now, the reason why I wanted to bring that is, hiring and the economy coming back and restaurants and everything reopening. There's going to be a lot of demand, and there's going to be, I would have to imagine, quite the competition for talent that maybe got let go. So keeping it by the numbers. I mean, 4.8 million jobs. July looks like it's according to the numbers in the sports industry, which, keep in mind, there's no sports going on right now. And so with sports industry looking like an increase of roughly 60 to 65%, wow, it's going to be crazy, awesome July. So get ready.
So it sounds like there's going to be a distribution that's happening. There might be some companies that are laying off, but there's still good job numbers based on job openings. So this might be, it's not necessarily going to be more unemployment. It's going to be a spreading of the careers and jobs.
Yeah, a reorganization. I mean, I
think that's a better way to put it. Yeah.
When you go through a recession, that's what you're doing. That's what the society is, reorganizing resources. And that's what a recession does. And then the resulting, climb out of it is the testing of the reorganization of resources.
Okay. All right. Right on. It's good by the numbers. I dig it.
All right.
Now time for the Tsourakis topic. Today's Tsourakis topic is, it's actually, it's kind of old school, but it's something I've noticed, not to get political, but you hear about like all these unrests and things with China, and kind of makes me look at labels for the products that we buy. And it's hard, right? Not to find a product that is not made in another country. And not that all other countries are bad, but I think it's important to, support the jobs, at home best. So this isn't a long-winded thing. I think everybody knows that having jobs in this country is important. Also the marketing, the ways that, especially when you look at like Amazon, when you're buying a product and you're like, hey, is this American made, or where is this? They'll hide that and just say that it's imported. So I'd like to see a resurgence of supporting jobs that are here, and then people questioning where this is made, looking at labels and realizing that the more good that we do close to us, the more that we can do better from a global standpoint, spreading it out, and that starts here. And this is another old school thing. If you can't buy something that is made in America, if you buy it used here, you technically bought something that keeps money in our economy. So if you're buying, secondhand is always buying American. So near and dear to my heart, supporting jobs that are in this country, buying, products that are made here is the Tsourakis topic of the day. So it might be old school. It's not political. It's just buy American whenever you can.
Such a nationalist, John. No, I love it because it's true. Because if you go back to where the middle class was created from, it was when Henry Ford said, I need to, he was creating products that his employees couldn't afford. And he changed his pricing model so that his employees could buy the cars that they were producing, and that exploded. And so there was jobs, and then they could buy things. And then it's like, oh, wait, this is how the economy works. The economy is all about the churn. Mm-hmm. It's not some individual number. It's how fast a dollar goes through the system and churns through, because the more that goes, the faster that goes, the more people get impacted. And so if you remove the factory, and now the thing is being produced in China, if you then remove the job, you slow the churn. And there's not, so I'm 100% agreeing with you. It isn't a political topic. It's really an economics topic. And it's, we should be churning dollars through our system, not sending them overseas immediately. And if that's what you do when you buy a product, is sure, there's a supplier, there's a shipper, and there's a store that makes a little bit, but then the rest of the dollar is gone.
Yep. It's like with jobs to your brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers, right? So,
right.
Those are, and that has to start at home. And every other country needs to think the same way about their stuff, right? It's not just, 100%. Hey, us versus them. And the reason I bring that topic up today is because just from the marketing angle of it, the way that companies are hiding that, or have been hiding that for, a long period of time, that's unethical. That's bad advertising. That's not the way to do that. So, and that also hurts the country here, even if it's some, a little Amazon shop that's trying to make money on it. I think people need to look at the greater situation here and realize the impact that they can have by, creating something. And to that point, I think that's one of the benefits of COVID. People realizing the logistics that 100%. Are occurring, that is going to create more manufacturing and more makers in this country. It's something that I'm like, all right, cool. I love that when a negative creates a positive.
There's a giant decoupling going on right now between the United States and China. And, the fact that 80% of all our prescription drugs comes from China, and during this COVID, people literally had trouble getting their prescription drugs. That's a giant warning sign. So, it's, again, completely removed from politics. This is exactly what needs to happen. We need factories that creates jobs. The small, I went to high school in a small town, Weirton, West Virginia, which was a steel town. And, if you didn't work for the steel mill, you worked for a company that was a supplier to the steel mill. You're connected to that steel mill. Mm. I went out of business. It's sure, the town's still there, still exists, but It's nothing like what it was.
Yeah, just in name.
And those small towns across the nation that have been gutted from that type, since going back to the 70s. And, I think America will be worse off as a whole if we lose that rural. I mean, a lot of people just love the urban cities and think that everything else is flyover country. I love driving out and going out of the country. I love exploring that part. And I think we'll lose out on a lot of culture and a lot of value by decimating those communities.
I agree. And I think it starts with, having some pride, right? For having things made here, and then realizing what that does. It gives jobs to, our family members and friends. But at the end of the day, we need some type of movement to create that. And you remember back in the day, mainly I remember from like the 80s, there was the Made in the USA. That was still a real big deal. And then it kind of just faded away, right? With the whole globalization. Not that there was anything wrong with that. We tried something, it didn't work. Okay, cool.
Cheap goods.
Yep.
Cheap goods.
Figure it out. And they're made really well, right? So we need to make really, really good things here. Not pushing for necessarily minimalism, which isn't a bad thing, but need to make really good things here that last at a price that people can afford. That is competitive with everybody else.
I mean, just bringing it real life to you. Yesterday, I needed shoes and found out that New Balance is made here in America. So I went and bought me a pair of New Balance. It's like,
good for you. You never knew that? Right on.
Yeah. Well, so just wasn't that interested in the shoe industry.
Yeah.
So, Nikes, those are, sweatshop, 20 cents an hour kids making those shoes, and they're the most expensive. And so I was like, no, I'm going to go get me some New Balance.
All right. I think that's a good point for us to close on today. Footwear.
Yeah.
I like
Great
it.
episode.
Yeah. Good. A lot of fun. All right, anybody, you have any questions based on burnout, re-energizing, go ahead and shoot me an email. I'm happy to help. If you want to join the Digital Mastermind, do the same thing there. Either visit us at digitalmastermind.com. Shoot me an email, Jon, Jon, at digitalmastermind.com. And please subscribe, like, share wherever you've seen this show. Other than that, hope you have an amazing week, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you so much. Bye now.